in some of the episodes that we just watched now was that matching outfit between Dick Tremaine and Lou.
Yes, that would be
tired. So let's talk a little bit about costume. I always find Ian Buchanan's outfits to be particularly interesting and exciting. Tell us a little bit about how the process of developing costumes would work for a new character.
As Peggy mentioned, I think it was a collaboration. Can you hear me?
I think we do need the mic.
Hello. As Peggy mentioned, I think it was a collaboration with David, with Mark, certainly with the actors. They all had an input into what felt right for them. I never would want an actor to be in something that didn't feel right. And one of the great things about Twin Peaks, and I felt, although I have to certainly give a nod to Patty Norris because she did the pilot, and without that as the foundation, she was the springboard for me to continue. So yes, there were new characters that I was solely responsible for, but the original characters, I think it would be inappropriate for me to not nod to Patty because she's an amazing, talented designer. But to answer your question about Ian, or even there were times when Peggy would have to not be in her uniform and she would go out on dates or things. So it was what felt right in this small town. It never, still to this day, is not about what's in magazines and what's fashion. I think one of our challenges was to create real people that I always wanted Nadine Hurley to knit her own sweater. Like, that was something for me that always felt she would make a variegated yarn knit sweater that she would have. So I think that was one of the important things, is to create real people. And why do any of us wear what we wear? And the same coming from this small town. Josie Packard was probably, or Piper Laurie's character, Catherine, because or Ben Horn, who perhaps traveled the world, their point of reference in their clothing was different than the people who stayed in the town and who didn't leave the town, except in perhaps whatever they saw in a magazine but then with somebody like Ian Buchanan, who worked at the department store, that was one of the things that Lucy liked. She said in an episode about, well, he has a jacket, Andy doesn't have a jacket.
So one of the great things I want to explore with Lori here is how the work coming in from Angelo got incorporated into the various episodes. So I thought maybe the collaboration between a director and a music editor would be interesting. How did the two of you work together to score the episodes that you guys made?
Usually they had an almost final cut that we would sit down and look at together and spot, where the music was going to be and what the mood of the scene was. It was really general. And I had just this, brigade of music cues. So we really didn't get specific in the first meeting except to put up a little bit, does this feel right? And the director would say, no, that's all wrong. Or they would sort of give me direction. I would take copious notes and then bring them back in a few days to take a look at, what I sort of would sketch out the music. And it was different the first season because it was all on film and mag with a big cam it was I could only run 2 or 3 reels of audio at one time, so it was really hard. But the second season was the first year of digital audio, so I was one of the first editors using that medium, and it made my life so much easier.
I do remember the mixes of, we mixed at Todd-AO, and everything was done and finished exactly as you would have filmed. And, it was thrilling to go to Todd-AO and see it, the film projected, and it looked amazing, and it would sound fantastic. And then David would make us listen to it on the worst, RCA TV. So the playback would be on this, piece of shit, And, for fear that's what somebody would have in their house. So you would really hear, what it was going to sound like in any, you know, the worst possible scenario. And it was always like, after it sounded great, it would be like, you know,
Yeah.
but it was thrilling. The whole process was thrilling.
Well, what we've heard is that Angela would compose one scene per episode. And I'm curious to know how that scene got selected, whether that was something that came from the director, or whether it was something that came from Mark and David, and which scenes you wound up actually having composition for, if you remember.
I directed 4 episodes, and 3 of them were fairly early on, or before Laura Palmer's Killer was discovered. And I'm trying to remember, I feel like we spent more time going through cues that existed.
The
You know,
first season we did, it was all handed to us
yes.
before we started with episode 1. In the second season, there were some scenes, if you'll recall, the scene when Donna and Maddie sneak into Harold's to try to steal the diary.
Yes.
That was scored to picture.
Yeah, I remember
You can
that, because
tell.
that was one of the episodes I did. And that was a very specific mood for that
Right,
scene.
yeah. So that's an example of one of the scenes that was scored to picture.
And Catherine, I had your first log lady scene.
I remember.
Yes, it's great to see you.
It's great to see you too. We sat around that table for a whole day.
We did.
Because we had so much coverage to do of that tea party.
There were so many people in that tea party.
Yes, and you were such a good director and so patient.
Oh,
Yes, it was a wonderful day because we all really shared with each other how to cover that. And I remember bringing in a lot of things from my own home
yes.
for her cottage, a little deer and lots of little props around. The prop people were very generous about letting us bring in our own doilies, and
It was very specific.
not that I'm a doily person,
No, no.
but I had some doilies. Yeah, it was.
It worked well for them.
And I think it was the day before Thanksgiving, so the crew was really eager to leave.
Yes.
But you stuck with it and did that coverage, and I'm so happy you did. It was great fun.
The whole thing was an amazing experience.
I'm curious for Michael and Harley, because having a major character who's Native American on screen is very unusual. What sort of, was there interaction between you as an actor and you as a writer in terms of, how that character should be portrayed and what sort of things you would say?
Well, it's really interesting. I'm finding out now that they had a lot of back and forth with the censors, I guess, about what I could do and what I couldn't do. And basically, you told them I could do whatever I wanted to do. So I heard it.
That seemed the best way forward.
Even to this day, being a native actor, there's always, I'm basically a comedic actor, and you're always afraid that we're going to offend somebody, and they never bothered to ask us,
Yeah, I don't remember it being discussed a great deal. I think that it was, particularly in that context, everything was so heightened or strange or otherworldly anyway that you weren't really worrying about how it kind of conformed with reality or what someone's idea of reality was. And it was, I always thought it was sort of normal to an absurd degree. That was sort of how the show worked at its best. And so even that notion of the Native American character, I think it was, you kind of would write the scenes and you would have that in mind and you'd think about it. And sometimes it locked into the mythology of the town and the place. But it wasn't something, there was never really a sort of plan in place for something like that. It was really something that we kind of improvised as we went along.
What was so interesting about this character is he started to grow. He actually kind of became the soul of this whole entire, he was kind of the most grounded of all these people, and it was interesting to see, the growth of this character.
I remember being out on location when you all were looking for Jacques Renault's cabin, and there was a moment where you did something that was totally not planned, where there was like a piece of grass pointed in one direction, and everyone was following you, and you looked at the grass and you pointed ahead, and no one laughed at all when we were shooting, but afterwards I remember rolling on the ground, laughing hysterically that you had just done this, and obviously that was the way to go, to Jacques Renault's cabin.
It was an interesting scene we did where actually, evil was going to come out of Leland. we were all in there, and then somebody suggested somebody would go for help, and I went, I'll go, because, you know, as a traditional person, even though this is acting, I did not want to be in there when they call on those kind of spirits. I was very glad not to be in there. You know, about Twin Peaks as an artist, you know, I kind of forgot all of this, and lately it's been coming back up, and I've been watching it with my wife, and I realized that Twin Peaks changed the way that people process television. There's been changes before in subject matter and format, but not in the physical way that people actually absorb this art form. And that's why I think so many young people are fascinated by it, because they're actually getting a chance to get the whole experience when you watch it, you know, online. So it's I live in the Bay Area, in Berkeley area, and young kids will be following us with little movies. And my wife goes, "These kids are following you." And I go, "Can I help you?" And they go, "Are you Deputy Hawk?" And I go, "Uh-huh." And they go, "Cool."
Well, I feel like Twin Peaks in some way was the beginning of cable TV.
Oh yeah,
Even though
there would be a lot of stuff that's on now without Twin Peaks opening up that door for that process.
Even though it was on ABC, which is shocking to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the Covey character dressed, I mean, as Denise dressed as a woman. You know, I mean, having watched it recently to prepare for this, it's amazing to see so much of those kinds of things that didn't exist on television 25 years ago. Or I think Alex mentioned, or somebody tonight said something about Al Strobel, the one-armed man, and them not wanting to see it. There was a scene when we had him without a shirt or with a t-shirt and not wanting to see his body, or Lucy being pregnant with whose baby, and I mean there were a lot of things that Twin Peaks did that really was really ahead of its time, and I think
Visual
Leslie,
storytelling.
oh my God, definitely.
Amazing music.
And scary, yeah, it really moved, it really drew me in. I mean, having not seen it in all these years and to watch it again 25 years later, it really, really proud of the work that I did and that we did as a collaboration, because it really truly was that, a collaboration.
How long were the scripts? Because I know now I'll get a script for something that's like, I just directed something with Aaron Sorkin, and the script was 83 pages.
Yeah, our scripts were 39.
That's what I remember. I remember they were under 40.
Slowly, and yeah,
Yes.
they tended to be about 39.
And it was visual. So you would make room for it being visual storytelling.
Yeah, the timing was so important, and we were so careful with the post-production to make sure that every moment had its place and its time, and it was so important, the pacing of each scene, the music, the sound, how it was affecting everything, and the mood was that I think was really revolutionary too for television at the time.
And an ensemble effort. Everyone knew that we were doing something special. It was just to joy, no matter how much or how little you worked. We knew that we were doing some groundbreaking art.
I have to say, when the first season, the first 7, I wondered if they would ever show it. I mean, it was an amazing process being part of it, because directors were in really early. I mean, I remember coming in, like, I did show 5. I think I was there from the beginning, you know, just kind of hanging around. But I was wondering if they would ever actually air it. Like, I can't imagine what the network notes were on scripts. Harley, were there network notes?
They didn't give, no, they gave up. They're really, I mean, having gone through, I'm sure you have too, that process where now the amount of notes you get
Deadness.
is so scary.
Yeah.
But then I think ABC, to their credit, just went, okay, we know what to do.
We have no idea.
So we're not really going to give notes, and Mark and David wouldn't do them anyway.
Yeah.
So there really wasn't a notes process in place. I mean, you were, in that sense, we were just out in this kind of big warehouse out in Van Nuys. Because we usually, I think we had 7-day shoots, maybe 1 day out at the most.
Yeah.
So it was really like Twin Peaks land. And you would walk from set to set, and our offices were above that. So you could walk down to the sets, and suddenly you're in this insane world. But it was, you were really kind of closed in. It was kind of, you were sort of hermetically sealed from reality, because there were no network notes. And by the way, there was really no internet, no bloggers, no nothing. I mean, it was like, and so it was a completely different sort of experience, given the landscape of what little cable there was. It was really about network television then. It was, remember when we watched the pilot at my house once, and I had a lot of friends who were writers on LA Law and